And for those of you who've been asking, how do we set up our grow room and some of the things that we do for transplants. So I've shown you a little bit about, or I will be showing you some of the way we plant our soil, the way we plant our transplants, and how we do some of our microgreens. But I'll give you a quick rundown of our small grow room, which is our converted walk-in cooler. So the things that you need in here is air circulation, dehumidifier, your lights, and heat. So our lights provide enough heat in here, but in case we have a power outage, we have a backup small heater, and the heater will kick on when the electricity comes on, of course. But our lights, which is a 350 watt ceramic metal halide light, when the power goes off, I have to shut down the entire ballast and then turn it back on 30 minutes later. So it takes a while. If I don't see the electricity go off, the room may cool down from the light, so in which case our heater that's on a thermostat will kick on. In case of a complete power failure for several days, we'll just plug it in a generator to keep everything alive. So air movement, humidifier, lights, and heat. Simple. We've got a small fan that circulates the air throughout the building, or the room. Our dehumidifier that we just got at the Northern Hardware store, about $200. Our ballast that goes to our ceramic metal halide light, and then we do have some of these small supplemental lights in here as well, but we're not really running them, not necessary. Our microgreens get just enough daylight from the ceramic metal halide to produce fine, so we haven't been worried about turning those on. Then of course our light is on this rope, essentially, that's attached from either end of the room. And then we have these little pulley systems on here so we can adjust the height of the lights. So as the plants grow, we can pull it up higher so it doesn't burn them. So there's our small heater. Pretty simple setup. Not a lot of electricity used, and the revenue that can be generated from the selling of the microgreens alone pays for more than electricity, as well as the materials needed. And the basil earns quite a bit more money, although we've never harvested basil indoors, so that'll be a bit of a experiment, but we're confident. To start transplanting our ghost pepper plants, as well as some more of our basil. So I'm just going to go over some of the things that we usually do, and one thing that we do a little bit different this year for transplanting transplants. So it's applicable whether you're growing indoors or outdoors, as long as you're using soil. But anyways, I'll go into that coming up in just a minute. Okay, so here is my soil mixing area. Right now, this is on what during the growing season, we call the dry cooler. So it's an area that doesn't actually get too terribly cold. But now it's becoming the microgreen and basil preparation area, or whatever. So basically, I just have a bunch of soil here, some Sunshine No. 4 natural and organic potting mix. And then for nutrition, this year we're using this Gaia Green 444. It's a natural fertilizer made of bat guano, feather meal, alfalfa meal. So it's a pretty complete fertilizer. Now typically we used aged manure or compost, but I haven't been on the ball for turning and checking temperatures and stuff, which you have to have the proper temperatures to get rid of any E. coli and that type of thing. So we got some of this from Art Naps, and it should be able to keep us going. So because the nutrition in the potting mix, it's just enough to basically give plants a start. It's not enough nutrition to actually make them fruit or produce lots of foliage. So that's how we do it. So basically, we mix up a bunch of this soil with water, and then we place it into these 5-gallon buckets right here. We use the proper amount of the Gaia, which is half a cup per gallon of soil mix. We mix that up in there thoroughly, and then we put it into the new pots that the transplants are going into. Okay, so now that we got all of our 3.5-inch square pots, they're ready to transplant some of the pepper plants into here. So we don't put the basil in here, but this is about our standard size for pepper plants and tomato plants when we're usually growing them out for the season. Ghost peppers, obviously we have to start really early, and we will have to repot them into larger pots because they have such a long season. But our basil for our indoor operation, we'll pot them up into these. But typically basil in the normal season just stays in its standard 72 cell flats before it goes into the greenhouses. And we don't mix up any of the Gaia Green or any fertilizers or anything like that, manures, etc. for microgreens. They don't need it. They don't live long enough. So as you can see, or perhaps you can't, there's a little bit of yellowing on some of these ghost pepper plant leaves. Now the reason for this is that they're ready to be transplanted. So they're running out of room with the roots, and you can see the roots are starting to come out underneath. So that's why it's time to pot them up into these with a little added nutrition, and they will just jump up in size. And there's your pepper plants all transplanted up, watered, and ready to start growing even bigger. Now I'll start transplanting basil, such as these guys, or well, I'll be transplanting some of those into bags like this so we can completely fill up this room and start generating some income from our basil. Alright, so there is the new basil, just a few bags, and some over there on the side. I was hoping that I'd be able to fill up this floor space over here too, but ran a little short on soil. I think I needed about 2 more bales of the sunshine mix, so I ended up just transplanting more plants into the bags, which will be okay. Basil does fine with you know, a lot of crowded space. We'll just have to feed it a bit more regularly with a little bit of the Gaia mix. So we'll start some more plants, and we'll be able to fill up this area over here. So it's a big trial this season for growing the basil indoors. Typically, you know, I grow it outdoors, and we grow a heck of a lot more. But now we'll have basil. Our first harvest will be coming soon. So awesome. And then as soon as the floor dries up, as you can see, we have lots of water, lots of muddy soil. Once the dehumidifier takes all of the moisture out of the air, it'll also take it off the ground, and we can sweep it up here and clean it up.